Now let's have a short look at the initial screen. So what we see here in this upper line is the so-called menu bar. We will see things to be displayed here, and we will see functions here. Here we have the title bar where we see in what transaction we are, and we will see that also in a minute. And the third bar here, the third area, is the so-called application toolbar. So when we are within a certain transaction, like changing a material or creating a custom order, we will see in this line what we are able to do. Now this area here is the so-called SAP Easy Access menu. So we will do most of our jobs in logistics. You can click here and then the menu is opening. Can go down and navigate in this menu here, and we will do a lot of work here in this logistics part of the menu. Now the first little exercise we do, of course, a material is one of the basic, data element or business objects, as we say in SAP. So please let us open logistics, and then we go to material management. And here we go to Material Master. Now let's scroll down and open the material, and this go to display. And suddenly you see here for the first time a little three-dimensional cube. Before there was always that folder element. Here we have a cube, and a cube is really opening a function. So if you now double-click display current, something is moving here. And you can you get a screen where you need to enter the material number of the material you want to display. You see here the title bar of the application is display material. This is what we selected to do. It is the initial screen, and now we would need to enter material number. Okay, we don't enter into material here. Let's go to exit, and then we return to the initial screen. So what we can do here in the status bar, you see here some elements. This is the user you are logged on with. So I did log on with user learn 30. So you should see your user ID here. And if you click down this thing here, it disappears. So if you don't want to see it and want a cleaner screen, you can move it away. If you go here, you see something about communication. Let's open this. And now if you click into your username, you can see certain other things. For example, you could see what is your application server, what is the current response time, interpretation time. So 700 milliseconds is not too impressive, but still it's quite a good performance. You see the client. That is in German, this is Mandant. We will see that then in the first session what that is. Client is 225, always important to enter 225 as a client, or in German user interface, the Mandant. So if you want to see your response times, you can enter the response time here, and then you see how the system is performing. Let's go to display at current date. And then we see, well, it was 1.7 seconds. Again, exit, returns to 0, display current. Yeah, something like this. Good. Okay, let's go to exit here. Good. Now we go to another part of the menu. We close material and material master. Let's go up to material management. Yes, we are already in there. And then to inventory management. Okay, in inventory management we go to environment. Environment is usually a lot of transactions where you get reports or list displays, and we want to know how much do we have on stock for a certain material. So let's go to stock, and then there is stock overview. Let's enter stock overview. So now we get a big screen here where we need to fill out some of the fields. We don't do that. The interesting thing is if we go into that area, we see transaction MMBE. And actually I think it's easy to understand that navigating with the mouse to these menus and through these menus and to these functions is pretty time consuming. So nearly or all SAP functions, and we don't call them functions, we call them transactions. So I always will use the term sub-transaction and not sub-function. A sub-transaction has a short code, a transaction code, or short TC, transaction code. The transaction code for this transaction is MMBE, Material Management Bestand. So German, we see a lot of German abbreviations here because the DNA of SAP is German. Now, let's try to go out there again to the main menu. We can close everything here, logistics, let's close it. So we have the initial menu. Now, in that bar, if we enter MMBE, the transaction code, we immediately jump to the transaction without, you see here, this is exactly the screen we have been before. We jump to the transaction without the need to navigate through the menu. And this is where transaction codes have their real power, because usually in a company or an enterprise, you are used to work with a limited number of transactions. You know the transaction codes by heart. And you navigate directly to them, and in most of the times you will not go through the menu and spend time on clicking yourself through the menu. Now the point is, do we always need to go to that icon here, or to that bar and check what is the transaction code and then know it by heart? No, we don't need to do that. I'll show you how this is going quicker. Let's return to the menu. And I show you a setting. Now what we do is, please go to more here and enter extras. So it might be that you have extras directly here in that bar. It depends how much space you have, but go to extras and then select settings, please. And now under settings, you can set up the subgo so that so-called technical names are displayed. And that actually means that the transaction codes are displayed at the beginning of the menu entry. Now let's check again. We go to logistics. We have been in material management. We were in inventory management. And let's go to a material document. And now you see here that 4-digit MBBM, MB90, MIGO. What did we check here? It was a stock overview. So we have been in inventory management, environment, and stock. And here we have MMBE stock overview. So when you have that tick, and that is very important because it makes your life easier, you immediately see the transaction code, and you can use from that point on, if it is an important transaction, to work with it. Okay, so the next thing you can do, so if you need a stock overview transaction, very often you can just use the left mouse button, click on it, hold it, and move it up to favorites. Okay, so then it appears in your favorites, and in favorites you can set up your menu as you want to have it. For example, in favorites you might use the right mouse button and say insert folder, and you create a folder, material management, where you group all your transactions which you are using for searching for inventory, changing materials, and so on. Okay, and just move your transaction here, and then you see that you can rebuild your own sub-menu, and you don't need to navigate. Of course, the sub-menu here is still there, but you can navigate through your own menu. Just play with it. Nothing you can do wrong. I mean, if something is wrong, you just use the right mouse button and say delete favorite, and then it's out again. Okay, and you can delete the folder, right mouse button, delete favorite, and out again. And now let's make it clean up. Okay, let's leave that for a moment, the Fiori Launchpad. Maybe we need that later on. Okay. Now some hints that might be useful to work with the system. The first one, an easy one, is sometimes it makes sense that you have a little bit more, or to have 2 or more SAP GUI windows on your screen. I mean, you know that you can open several Excel files at the same time. So let's assume here we are entering a transaction MM03, which is viewing a material, now display material. And now you have the idea that, okay, I really want to do another transaction. Of course, then you can leave this transaction, return to the menu, but you also always have the choice to open a new GUI window, which after some seconds displays your complete new window, and you can, okay, we can start our transaction MMBE, which we viewed before, and work separately in this screen. This is sometimes very useful to have 2 different screens or windows open. Just close it. If you close the last window, you are locked off. Now let's return to the menu. I'll return to MM03, displaying a material. And sometimes you see here with that little red star that these are mandatory data. Of course, if you want to display a material, the system asks you for a material number. I already have one here, and this is a valid one. I just opened some non-existing material number. First of all, you get immediately the hint before even entering the transaction or starting the transaction that this is not existing. But if you say continue, you get an error message here. So this is something which is very important. Here at the bottom of the screen, you get either green, no message at all, which is fine. You get green messages, which is also fine. It says you have done your job successfully. You get sometimes yellow messages, which is just a hint that saying, okay, I hope you understand what you're doing, because you might be starting things that are taking quite a lot of time. And you can get red messages. So a red message is always something you need to react, you need to do something different. In classroom, I sometimes see students which are saying, oh, just let's try it again. I say, okay, and again, let's try it again. But I mean, that doesn't help you. Usually, whenever you have such a red error message, you must know what you are doing to fix that. And you always have the option to say view details. Okay, then you have something which is a kind of a performance assistant, or it's called performance assistant, a nice help function, which is in a little bit more sentences and word explaining what the issue is. I mean, in this case, it's really quite straightforward. The system simply cannot find a material with that material number, but sometimes it's more complicated and you have to react on this. So always be careful if you get that red messages, and don't continue unless your instructor has told you to do so. Okay. Now something which also can drive you crazy, if you don't fill out this field correctly, and I say, okay, I want to go to another transaction, MMBE for example, that is not working. Why is it not working? Because in SAP, whenever you are in a screen where you have filled in something wrong, or you did not fill in a required field, you cannot simply jump out of it without managing it. What you always can do is you can exit the transaction and then things start from you. And this is the activity I recommend, to leave a transaction with the exit button whenever you don't know what to fill in, or you're not sure whether you really want to execute the transaction. So transactions can have quite an impact on the system. I mean, if you change a price, you will sell with a changed price later on. If you delete or if you inactivate a product, you cannot sell it anymore. So be careful with and be sure you know what to do when you start transactions. Okay, that was it for this video. And let's go ahead, if you have time and still some energy, go to the next video.